backstory on marketing and AI. And if you haven't already done so, please visit ProRelevant.com and sign up for all of these episodes and podcasts. And if you're interested, I have my upcoming book coming out in the next short while, hopefully sooner rather than later. The book is called The AI Marketing Machine, and you can find out more information about that at marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. Today, I'm interviewing Skip Wilson of Draft Media Partners, and let me tell you a little bit about him. He is a seasoned marketing and media executive, founder of Draft Media Partners, and he is host of the Advertising Podcast. With a background at CNN and iHeartMedia, he blends creative strategy with data-driven results, helping businesses scale through intuitive software and impactful advertising. Skip, that's wonderful. It sounds like a great background. Welcome. So good to have you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so tell us what's your backstory on AI and marketing? How did you get involved in all of this good stuff?
So when I was still in my iHeart, I was vice president of digital media for iHeart from for 12 years before going out on my own. And we started using machine learning in campaigns before it was cool, before really anybody knew AI. And it's not, machine learning is a little different than AI, but I mean, using it to optimize campaigns, that's something that's we've been doing for a long time because it is so much of marketing and advertising is expert based and all of those things, but then it doesn't really take a genius to know, okay, if this ad size is performing better than that ad size, put more budget towards that ad size, right? Like that's, and so the ability to just automate those types of things, we were doing that in 2010, and so, so I was super excited, when ChatGPT first came out and I would say I was definitely an early adopter because I'm dyslexic. So, something like, even writing like a simple email or those types of things, it takes me twice as long as it takes a normal person. And, uh, so I was like, yeah, this is great. I'm all on board with this. I see I know the downsides of it too. I mean, I get the environmental impact. I get the fear of that folks have in terms of displacing jobs and those things. But I also am a tech optimist. I think that that's always the fear with any new technology is job displacement and those things. But it always, so far at least, has always led to better things for everybody. And I don't know anybody in the world that who got into the marketing and advertising world for things like figuring out which banner ad size is performing better. Like that's not the reason you're doing it anyway. So yes, let the machines have that job for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that kind of analytics to improve the execution in a big way. And no question that that machine learning and analytics can do that. And now you kind of have the same capability on the creative side a little bit and
Yes.
supporting your messaging and what have you. So tell us, what is Draft Media Partners?
So we launched in 2020, and our we really started as a MarTech company. The original idea was it was dynamic response advertising forecast technology. We essentially took the average response rates from ads by zip code, so that if you're like a roofer in Des Moines, then and you need 40 leads and you have X amount of budget, then it will actually plan out like what that media mix needed to be. And this was pre-AI pulling in from, but it would take us, you know, the idea was we'll sell this as a service to ad agencies, mid-sized ad agencies, media companies, and those things. It was going well. And then AI really changed all that because it would take us about an hour still to build out the canvas and the flow and all of that stuff for it to make the predictions. And so that's also part of why I was such an early adopter of things because I saw right away, I was like, oh, this can take our existing thing and just make it lightning fast so that it doesn't take us 30 minutes to map it out because it's essentially just plugging in numbers. And makes, it made it so much quicker. And then I realized, okay, well, now we don't have to just be in the planning world. Now we can be in the actual execution world, which was a space that would have been very hard to scale. Getting people that are good at the execution side of advertising is they're expensive because they're people that have you can't have or at least at that time you can't have a bank of 40 people with a large amount of experience unless you had several million dollars in payroll that you could pay out. And so but because of ChatGPT and how quickly you could turn out those, like, not really proposals but that initial draft of what that media mix needed to be, it made it so that you really could have one person doing what would have taken a team of 10 or 15 people. And that was, 3 years ago. So it's gotten even
Mm.
better since then.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it really is amazing. And I've definitely seen a difference between ChatGPT 3 and 4. And I
Yep.
got in there just when 3 came out. And I'm noticing what might be a difference in going from 4 to 5. It seems to be asking smarter questions. You put in a prompt and it says, "Well, now that I've given you this, how would you like that?" And you go, "Oh, that's really a good idea." So I think those questions have gotten a lot better. So. Now, one of the
Absolutely.
things that's critical about advertising is, how do you forecast success without spend before you spend any money, and using then the AI to be able to predict that. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing there.
So that was one of the things that was always so for my entire so I started when I was 16. So I've now had 21 years in the advertising industry. And every meeting, almost always, you get asked some version of, okay, well, if I give you this money, what can I expect in return? Which is, of course, a reasonable question because that's why you buy things normally, is you want some sort of thing in return. And but I always felt like there wasn't a good answer to it, and that was always frustrating to me because I'm like, this is a knowable thing, right? Like this we know what the response rate is on a landing page for financial services versus home improvement versus dentistry. It's like you can know these things, so that's why when we have, and so it was just pulling all those things together. Again, this was pre-AI, was really the basis of our dynamic response advertising forecast technology, our draft technology. And then when you are able to do that in the AI space, it makes what we created that took, an hour, now it takes minutes. And so you don't have to wonder anymore. Like, even without any sort of special thing, you can you can simply ask the question and get a reasonable response of what is a decent cost per lead for a roofer, and so you don't have to guess, which is phenomenal because so many business owners have it's a skew one way or the other on what kind of results they should get. You have the people that are spending whatever it is, say $5,000, and they think that they're going to get, 5,000 leads from it, and it's a dollar a lead's not going to happen. And then you also have the people that have done it before and it didn't work. And so they're just turned off forever. And they go, oh, that's not going to work. Both of those are false, right? Like it's not,
Yeah,
you shouldn't, it is a knowable thing to know, okay, well, if you're in the home improvement world, it's probably going to be about $100 a lead. So if you got $5,000, it's about 50, it'd be about 50 leads. So that's something that, I only know that because I've been doing it for so long. ChatGPT can know that because it gets the benefit of all the people like me in the world, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, and I guess that's why most businesses guess, because they don't have that experience and the methodology in forecasting success like you've got. Now, you mentioned DRAFT. Tell us what you mean by that and how that kind of fits into the equation here.
Well, I mean, that was our initial product. I mean, as Draft Media Partners, that was our initial thing, was being able to provide a media plan with a very specific ROAS. So that was, and that's nice on a number of levels because then it also gives you a report card because then you're able to say, okay, if you forecasted out a $100 cost per lead, then it's a pass fail, right? Like, am I at $100 cost per lead? If so, that's okay. If I'm less than that, that means I'm doing better than average, which is, good. And if I'm above that, then that means that things need to change. I've always viewed advertising very much like fixing a machine. Like if you're trying to fix an engine or if you're trying to get like a printer to work or something, you're trying to figure out, okay, I see the electricity is getting from here to here, but it doesn't seem to be getting from here to here. And advertising is the same way. When you've got something that's not working, rather than doing what most business owners do, which is going, the whole thing's not working, you try to figure out, okay, well, is it getting people to the landing page? If so, then the ad's doing its job. Is the landing page converting into actual leads? If not, tweak the landing page. It becomes a very objective thing when you sort of break it into parts. And that's only possible if you know what each part is supposed to be doing, right? Otherwise, you're just guessing.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And following that, you're describing basically a purchase funnel,
Right.
and following that purchase funnel and seeing where it's leaking or where it's being blocked or whatever is critical. That's for sure. So now, one thing that's certainly a big piece of this is the data and having a really good data-driven design. Tell us a little bit about that and how you kind of merge the data and the analytics and the creative all together.
So you, so we cheat because we have 170 active campaigns and all those things. And so we do take the real time learning from our own campaigns and all of those things. So we cheat, but let's pretend that you don't have that. Um, it's all knowable numbers. In other words, that's the magic of AI is you can ask it, what is a typical cost per lead as long as you're in the US, certainly. But yeah, but if you're in the US, really the entire Western world, it has enough data to be able to make a pretty good guess. Yes, it might be giving you numbers from a year ago or 2 years ago, and which sure isn't as nice as like real time numbers, but it's still going to be pretty accurate. It's going to be it'll allow you to figure out, is this thing worth doing or not? And so you really don't have to guess anymore. And so and you don't even have to have like, it's great if you can do like the deep research, if you've got like GPT Pro and all of those things. Those are helpful things, but even just the basic poor man's, right off the shelf OpenAI tool will give you a pretty good guess on, give you what I call cocktail napkin numbers, which is, yeah, this is worth doing, or no, that's something that is very knowable.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that. I'd never thought about using ChatGPT to kind of give me at least an estimate of what it's seeing out there in the wide world as to response rates. I'll have to try that. So
Absolutely.
uh, yeah. Now, building marketing tools or building award-winning marketing tools. It sounds like you've done a couple of them, and it sounds like you've had some the Of course, there's always the good news and the bad news. So tell us about a couple of lessons that you've learned in building these great development tools.
So one thing that I will say, definitely on the negative side, is things that we've had that aren't great. I would be skeptical of having anything go outside of your organization without having at least a human eye read it or look at it. I do. I've seen plenty of like YouTube videos where they talk, where they're talking about like, vibe marketing and all these things where they're like, it can generate 200 headlines and then you can just copy and paste and start your campaign. That's incredibly dangerous because now you're putting
Yeah,
something in the world that may or may not be accurate. So, you still have to be careful. You have to make sure that you're not, that it's not false advertising or those things. And and I would say the worst example of that, we have a fitness place that we work with that's Denver Health and Fitness out of Denver, North Carolina. And the closest we've ever come to putting now this was a proposal, this wasn't ad creative, but we almost put a proposal that we had written out the plan, but then we used an AI tool to take that plan and put it into a PowerPoint or a Google slide presentation. And of course, it changed everything to Denver, Colorado. And so
Oh.
it was, we were minutes, minutes away from going through a pretty well thought out plan, but then completely fumbling at the 1 yard line just because of the nice slides that we wanted to accompany it, saying the completely wrong city. So, that's why I wouldn't just auto generate. Also, too, this is an old example. This was actually this is another one of those where it was kind of pre AI. But in my iHeart days, we developed a tool when Twitter was public and uh, public information, and you could auto reply, like you could still build stuff on top of Twitter. And we built a tool that would look for specific keywords and then auto reply. And there was a restaurant around here called Fats Cafe, which had multiple locations. And we programmed it to where anywhere in these select states, I forget how many states it was, 3 states, something like that. When someone would tweet thirsty or hungry, it would automatically reply with, well, then come to Fats Cafe. Not realizing, because of my shelteredness, that they're not always talking about food when they talk about being thirsty and hungry. And so there was all these like fairly illicit posts with a reply that said, "Hey, come to Fats Cafe." And so I I would still check things, but it's
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. I could. Oh, I'm not even going to go there. That's just really
yeah,
funny.
right.
But you're
Yes,
you're so right, though. I mean, you have to have human in the loop. Now we deal with larger brands, and
yeah,
and there's always anything that goes out the door has to be reviewed by a legal something, and because you
right,
never. I mean, not only do you need to make sure that you got the right city, but it's also is it nuanced in the wrong direction where we're offering maybe some kind of a guarantee or whatever that happens to be that you don't want to, legally you don't want to do. So it's,
absolutely. We
yeah,
have a
yeah,
a large number of healthcare clients. We have a large number of a large number of financial services clients, and so yeah, it's even though AI is getting really good at knowing some of those things, if your client gets sued because of redlining on your campaign, that's a look that nobody wants, right? Like that's something that you definitely want to. That's why, yeah, I would always check those things.
yeah.
Because and it's a good thing. I used to always have a rule where, and we still actually have this, where nothing goes to even a client or out to the public with at least 2 eyeballs on it, even small
Mm,
campaigns, because
mm,
it's just too easy.
yeah,
Everyone copy and pastes from an old proposal in the proposal world. And on the other side of that, in the ad world, yeah, there's just too many times that I've seen
yep,
relatively large companies with a typo in the ad or something like that.
yep,
And it's
yep,
just,
yep.
I'm like, you couldn't have taken the 10 minutes it would have taken to have one extra set of eyeballs on that. It
Yeah.
drives me insane.
Well, I hate to say it though, you're so right about having those extra eyeballs, and actually, it's even harder, I think, to although I've gotten better at it, to when you review something online, it's I think a lot easier to miss just a couple of tiny little things in there. I remember when I was a lot younger, my boss he was a excellent proofreader checker, and he would catch every one of my double spaces. And so just little things like that. Now of course
Yep.
he's trained me, so when I see a double space I have to laugh because I
Right.
would have caught that, but I don't catch everything, but it's up there's a double space that shouldn't be there or something like that. Um,
I'm still of the old school mind of I still like to read copy out loud and record it and then listen back to it, and
oh,
even
yeah.
because that is an easy way to catch awkward sentences and those things that you just sometimes don't know until it's just hard to. And maybe that's actually because of the dyslexic thing. Now that I think about it, but I do think that sometimes the ear is better at catching. It won't catch things like spacing errors, but it will catch things like a weird
Yeah,
sentence or
yeah,
a sentence
yeah,
that just doesn't flow right or make
yep,
sense to someone
yep.
outside of the industry. That is something that has always worked with me, worked well. Obviously, you need that in audio ads, but even if it's a Facebook ad, just take the extra seconds of turning on your voice memo, read the primary text into it, and then play it back, and just you'll catch so many things that you wouldn't catch otherwise.
That is a good trick. It's funny that you mentioned that, though, reading it back. I was at a conference and we had some Italian presenters, and they had translated with their presentation, and then they needed somebody though to read it, and so I was a designated reader for this one gentleman, and they're using high-end English, really like not just 12th grade words, but doctorate level words.
Right.
And when you're talking to a crowd that's trying to listen and capture all of the nuance, and it's hard. When I was reading it, I'd see these words, and I'd have to think about, now what does that word mean? And you kind of know what it means, and then you go, now what does that mean in a sentence? And by the time you figured it out, you're three or four sentences down the road.
Yep.
And so doing that, I could see that definitely working. That's a great tip.
It helps identify
Um,
the dragging parts too. If a lot of times if you're looking at a paragraph that's written, it becomes very hard to tell which part, you're going, I can't really cut much more from this. I've cut everything I can. But then when you're listening to it, a lot of times you're like, okay, yeah, that part's redundant. I'm going to just cut that out. Because if you can't listen to it all the way through without, being excited yourself, then yeah, it's too long. Like,
yeah,
cut it.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and I use, if it looks like it's too long, I just say, to Chat GPT, take this, it's 500 words, make it 250, and it does a great job at that. It does a really good job at cutting it down.
I think that's one of the best uses, honestly. I mean, I like it. I like it for starting from, I like it because it's better than staring at a blank piece of paper like we already talked about. But then I do love it for that at the end because everyone who's written anything, and in certain spaces we still do a decent amount of like OTT ads and audio ads and those things that do have to be specific lengths, like 30
Yeah,
seconds, 60 seconds,
yep,
15 seconds.
yep.
And anyone who's ever written that kind of copy, you do reach a point where you're like, oh, I can't cut this anymore. And I have found that AI is great at that
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it goes in unemotional. It doesn't care how witty that thing is. It'll pull it right out.
Yeah, well, and you're so right though. Getting that down to, I got to fit in 30 seconds. Can't be
Yep.
32. It's got to be 30 seconds, and that is tough. For any human to do, and but then to have a machine that can do it and do it incredibly quickly. It's just amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, let's get back a little bit. So let's talk about omni-channel marketing. Now, omni-channel marketing. What for our audience, just define that. But one of the things that we want to do is make sure that it works. And how do you? So, what are you doing to make when you're streamlining your campaigns? How are you using, AI insights and automation to be able to really get the most out of it, streamline it, and make it work in an omni-channel environment?
So omnichannel really just means multiple ways of getting the message. If you think of advertising in its most basic form, it's a specific message to a specific audience to get them to do something specific. And if you're using more than one way to reach that audience, then it's an omni-channel campaign. My For any small budget, I think search and social are like that's the bread and butter because that's the people that are like right now about to take action. It's a nice 1-2 punch because you can reach the people that are searching for your product or service, and then most people aren't going to take action the first time, right? Because it's whatever it is. you're about to take action and then the phone rings or the kids walk in or whatever, life happens. And so you're not going to take action the first time. And then social is great to bring them back to the site later. So if you've got a small budget, that's the way to go. And then for larger budgets, layering on that, the ability to build a brand, the ability to differentiate yourself so that, there's a lot of research that says that people would rather do business with businesses that they are familiar with. And something like video ads and those types of things can be a very great way to make them familiar with it. And we live in a day and an age where you are actually like most of what we do is household level targeting. So say we're working with a car dealer, for example. Well, that's more or less a whole household decision, right? Like that's most, if there's two decision, if there's a, if it's a typical family, there's going to be two decision makers in that household at least, might even be, but you also, nobody's going to buy a car that their kids are going to hate, right? So it's like, yeah, you got to influence that whole house for the most part. And we do live in a day and age where it can relatively easily be possible to send a postcard to that household because they came to your website and didn't and even though they didn't take action or even give their information, we can still hit them up with a postcard, and then we can hit them up with an email, and then we can follow them when they are doing that search or doing that research, and we can hit them up with a video ad, when they're all watching TV together. And you can do those things that would have been a very expensive campaign, like a
Hmm.
Coca-Cola level campaign without Coca-Cola budget. You can, because you're doing it for only 100 households in the market. And so
Yeah.
that's omni-channel in a nutshell. I would say where AI makes it possible or makes it better is so doing it is one thing. Judging or like reading the success of it or analyzing which part of it's working is the other side of it. Because usually, if somebody is a larger advertiser that's using omnichannel, they'll kind of throw their hands up and be like, of course, I don't know which part of it's working, right? That common quote of half my advertising is working, I just don't know which half. And AI really has changed that because even it makes it very easy to analyze data. I mean, analyzing data is one of the greatest uses of AI because that's another one of those things where when people talk about AI replacing jobs, I'm like, which jobs? Because I don't know anybody that got into marketing because they love reading like spreadsheets and stuff. Like, by all means, take the spreadsheet job. Um, but the because that's not that's again that's not the soul fulfilling part of it
Yep.
anyway, right?
Yep.
But whereas it would have taken, if you've got just to use that car dealer as an example, if they're on 10 or 15 different platforms, well, that to maybe four or five different target audiences, well, now that's almost 100 campaigns to dig through. That would have equaled a lot of labor hours that you would, of course, have to charge for if you're an ad agency. Now you can comb through that data in 5 minutes, just upload everything and be like,
Yeah.
which of these is working? And that I think is there's a lot that could be said about where AI I think is going to be, say, a few years from now. But I mean, that's something that right now you can be using AI for to help with omnichannel.
Yeah. Yeah. The only, I mean, it sounds like you're talking about a lot of not only omni-channel, but retargeting, once you've kind of got
Yep.
the one individual and then retargeting the whole household. One of the challenges that I think marketers have with retargeting and I wouldn't say I'm an expert at it, but one of the challenges that I've seen is when do you turn it off? Because quite often I've already made the purchase and yet I'm still getting the ads from the brand that I purchased or from the competitive brand that I haven't purchased, but I was looking at. And it would seem like I don't know in the AdWorks, a little button that says, "Hey, I've already purchased this. Stop sending," or something would be a good thing to
Right.
have.
Well, shameless plug from one of our products, which is called Reveal, which is essentially a burn pixel that kind of does that. When a purchase is made, it matches it back to that household and then does do that. But
Hmm.
even if so, like I said, sorry, quick plug there. But even if you don't have something like that, that's part of where knowing what is right for your product or service, your category is essential because you do have a car is a perfect example of where it used to be they would say that buying a car was a 90-day sales cycle. It hasn't been that way for years. Now it's
Yeah.
very much a 2 week to 1 month sales cycle. So following somebody, so buying those lists of people in market, which was a very profitable way to market, a few years ago. Now, by the time they're on that list, they've long already bought a car.
Yeah.
And and if I'm selling, well, we have clients that are in the e-commerce space that's even $100 clothing item. Well, $100 clothing item to me, I would never. I mean, I buy cheap clothes, but for their target audience, we remarket for a day or so, but then that's it because that's they've either purchased or not, or
Yeah.
they're never
Yeah.
going to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just knowing what your sales cycle is. If you're a plumber or a roofer, it's going to be 2 or 3 days. If you are something like we have a client that sells essentially like CPAP alternative dental devices. That's one where it's a very long, it is close to 90 days because it's
Mm.
not, they likely already have the CPAP. So it's not like it's an emergency. You just got to wait for them to finally go, I'm done with this thing. I want to try this. And so you kind of stay on them for a little bit longer. So it very much is an industry specific answer to that, but it is another one of those things it's not unknowable.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's still I guess it's a projection based on category, which makes a lot of sense because, no question that if I'm buying a $10 thing of Sharpies versus a
Yep.
$100, whatever it is, CPAP thingy, and the category then is, very high consideration or, there's a frustration level that takes a long time to build, then, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So, all
Absolutely.
right. Well, I'd love to keep going, but because you've, offered some great advice and some really interesting thoughts there. But unfortunately, there's only so much time in the day. I
Absolutely.
do have one last question for you, though, and that is, what advice would you give to an up-and-coming new marketer that is really finding themselves competing against AI in a pretty big way nowadays?
I think if you think of yourself as competing against AI, you've already lost because you're going to get destroyed. I mean, you're talking about some of the biggest corporations in the world that are building stuff that's going to be smarter, faster, better, cheaper than we could ever be. So already, already the game is over. AI won, in at least in the marketing world. So my first advice would be don't think of it that way. Instead, there are parts of the marketing experience that are at least a long way off for AI to replace, and that's the human connection, those coming up with off the wall ideas, those things that are unique, that haven't been tried before, that haven't been done before, and taking more. If you think of AI as a C student, which is it, by definition is because it's C is average, so everything AI is going to be average. So you let it do your average tasks. I'm a huge fan of it writing emails or doing rough drafts, but then rely on your own knowledge and your own experience. And even if you don't have experience, let's say you're brand new even in the marketing world, what AI can't do is make a connection with that business to try to figure out and think through what about this business is unique and how do I portray that? It's not designed to do that. It's designed to figure out what typically would a place like this say. And so that's where you can really differentiate yourself in the AI world. Let AI do your boring stuff, dig through your spreadsheets, let AI make that rough draft of that email or even compile, your 15-page report into a paragraph that you can read. Um, that's a good use of AI, and then take it to the next level on the human level.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you said that AI is kind of the average. Now, certainly it is. It's using probabilistic to basically take the average of everything. Um, it'd be interesting though, especially in marketing and especially when you're looking at, campaign effectiveness, to be able to say, first of all, take the best campaigns that you are aware of, and because it may not be aware of what's
Right.
best or not, but that you're aware of, and deduce what is driving the success of those campaigns. And because it then takes in everything, it's not just, a small sample. Like our data set that we individually have access to is minuscule
For
compared
sure.
to all of the stuff that's out in the web that the LLM has. And so to some extent, if you look at it that way, then you are competing against, and I take your point about competing against, but you are suffering, so to speak, and I don't know, maybe I will say competing against an
Sure.
LLM that really is an A or an A plus, employee in that limited area.
So, yes, I will say that it's still not great at coming up with off. For example, we have a client that is most of my clients I can't name drop because they're all white
Yeah,
labels. That's the downside of being behind
yeah,
of being mostly the execution folks. But the we have a client where it's a large multi-location, 70 plus location health and fitness place. And every health and fitness gym is running some variation of a try us for free, right? Like that's essentially the
yeah,
message. Hey, we're the best out
yeah,
here. Try us for free.
yeah,
Coming up with something like, all right, well then let's do young professionals nights on Thursdays because, and let's market these almost as their own types of events. That's something that's completely new and there's no history of for a gym. Those are also the kinds of campaigns that are dangerous because sometimes they fall flat on their face,
mhm,
but they're also the ones that really take off. And so when I call the generative AI right now average, that's a little unfair because you are right, because it does have a ton of information. However, it is going to copy what most of the market's doing. It's not going to come
mhm,
up with the truly unique stuff. Also, too, it I do like the idea of like that is where prompting is so important because I mean, to your question of like asking it first, because if you just say come up with an ad campaign for a roofing company, it is going to spit out a very basic campaign. If you say something like, what are the 10 best roofing campaigns available right now? It's not going to know, but it's going to come up with an answer that is unique and different and special. And then you can ask it,
yeah,
come up with something for the roofing campaign. Those little tricks in prompting have do make a big impact. A lot of times I'll ask it to do it in a voice in like the mind of XYZ person to, like what would David Ogilvy say about this roofing company, that kind of thing. And I've had success with that as well. Um, but I do think those unique and risky campaigns, that's still in the world of humans.
yeah,
Those are also not right for every business. Like if you're worried about making payroll next month, you need an average campaign, right? Like you need a campaign that is going to perform at a standard
yeah,
return on investment. You
and a
shouldn't take a
consistent,
swing. Yeah, you shouldn't
yeah,
be taking a swing
yeah,
for the fences. So every business is different, but yeah,
yeah, yeah. Now, just curious, I haven't played with it too much, and I think it's called Flavor or something like that, which it's supposed to then take the results, or it's supposed to then take the LLM and kind of widen the possible types of answers that you're going to get. And I don't know if you've played with that at all to get maybe some higher or better creativity out of your answers.
I have, and that does make a difference. Also, too, having it match the what a lot of times what I'll do is I will um have it scrape, and when I say I really my team and I like we'll have it scrape the website of the business to get a sense of what their brand voice is first, and then then prompting it with coming up
Mm,
with that campaign, because then you're having it not just because not just saying, edgier or friendlier or those types of things. Then you're not having to guess what that brand voice is. It's pulling straight from that too. I've actually found that to be more accurate than brand guides. A lot of our bigger, our
yeah,
actually, I mean, probably two-thirds of the companies we work with have brand guides,
yeah,
but brand
yeah,
guides are always aspirational, right? Like they're
yeah,
always what the boardroom came up with as the brand. Much better to just copy what they've posted for like the past, 3 months and put that
yeah,
into a GPT and have it come up with
yeah,
the brand, because then you get a much more realistic answer of
yeah,
what that
yeah.
brand is.
That's a good idea. Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, let's break. I'd love to maybe get you back on in a handful of months or whatever. But Skip,
Sounds
thank
great.
you so much. It's been really great talking to you and learning about how you're doing things. And as I said, and even today for certain, is learning a couple of little tidbits that can be used further in as we're all kind of getting better and better at using AI. How can folks reach out to you and your company?
Best way I would say is email info@draftmediapartners.com. And that comes to me. And then it also goes to as I mentioned, I'm bad at emails. So that it goes to me and then also people that will read and reply.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Skip. This has been great. And for the audience, definitely stay tuned for many other videos in this series on the backstory of marketing and AI. And if you're interested to find out more about my upcoming book, please go to marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. Skip, thanks a bunch, and we'll be
Yeah,
talking, I'm sure.
sounds great. Thank you.